And obviously, first overall pick belongs to the Cleveland Browns or the Chicago Bears once again. And we kind of have a bit of a question that we have to answer. Do we believe in Justin Fields? Quite frankly, for me, the answer to that is no. And with that in mind, there's a very easy first overall pick, and that is Caleb Williams. I'm going to take Caleb Williams and kind of keep everything moving. So, second overall is where things start kind of getting interesting, because once again, we've got the Chicago Bears. We're looking at Olu Fashanu, Marvin Harrison Jr. They have this particular site has Dallas Turner. I do not believe Dallas Turner is top edge rusher. But to me, the second best player in the class is very easily Marvin Harrison Jr. It's that simple. And to me, if the Broncos are picking at 3, things have gone quite wrong, and the pick has to be Drake May. You have to start at quarterback. So now comes an interesting team in the Minnesota Vikings. I think the Vikings could potentially trade out here because they're looking at the third best quarterback option, and somebody like, say, the Raiders or the Packers could come up and want to take the third best quarterback. And to me, I think that's what I'm going to have them do. I think the Raiders will be trading up here with the Vikings. So we're going to get 4. We'll move back. Using a second this year and maybe a third next year for 4. And there we go. So, with the trade up, the obvious place we are going is quarterback. And the next question becomes, who is the next quarterback kind of in line? Is it J.J. McCarthy, Quinn Ewers, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, Shedeur Sanders? I think Sanders comes back. Penix is kind of in a weird spot with me. I don't necessarily like him as a top 5 player, but like top 20 I could be okay with. To me, the next best quarterback on the board is Quinn Ewers. And with the Patriots, quite frankly, I think they go at wide receiver. I'm going to have them get I think Malik Neighbors. They need the rack ability. They need all of that sort of stuff. Obviously, I think quarterback is in play, but I don't necessarily think quarterback is the overwhelming kind of pick. And now we're looking at the board. I think, quite frankly, the Giants, I don't think you can quite get out of your contract that you've signed. So to me, the next highest position on my board next highest player on my board is Jared Verse. To me, he is quite easily the best pick here for a Giants team that needs basically a little bit of everything. Next up, the Cardinals. Cardinals, I think, kind of love what happened here. They take Olu Fashanu. They're going to need a left tackle of the future because, quite frankly, they don't have that guy. And so Olu Fashanu at quarterback, at left tackle, to go along with your apparent right tackle makes a lot of sense. Now we come to the Packers. Packers are kind of annoyed that Olu Fashanu just went off, but they get the next best player, the next best tackle, and that is Joe Alt. And it is quite an easy pick for me. Vikings back on the clock. Obviously, they could still go quarterback. I think you have the quarterback that I think you'd want anyways, and that is, to me, Bo Nix. He's an older quarterback. This team is kind of ready to compete right away. You got a bunch of assets for this pick. I think it is a great place to be. Okay, so with the Cardinals, I'm going on the edge. To me, the number 2 edge on the board is Chop Robinson. It is a very easy pick for me to make. Just go ahead, get him a long-term edge option. Giants, or the Jets, rather. Who's next? Offensive tackle. I'm not a huge fan of the offensive tackles, so I'm going with Brock Bowers, who to me is the next best player on board. And I think Washington's definitely looking at J.J. McCarthy and Michael Penix. I don't think they pull the trigger here. Instead, I'm going with the highest player on the board, which is Kool-Aid McKinstry. So, obviously, they like J.C. Latham. This particular site loves J.C. Latham, Blake Breland Trice, Barrett Carter. Not necessarily very high on these. To me, the next best player is Emeka Egbuka. And I think with the Titans receiving core being what it is, you take him, you don't complain very much. With the Bengals, I would have them grab Kalen King. They need corner help. They need a long, really bad. And if you're picking at 14, as they are right now, I think you have to kind of take top corner available, which to me is Kalen King. So, LA Rams. So, I'm tempted to go with my next highest edge, which is Laiatu Latu, which I think I'll actually do. I think Latu is my next best edge player. I think LA needs an edge. I think you're taking him. Which means I think the Chargers get a 2-for-1 by taking Cooper DeJean. I don't necessarily love it, but at the same time, I am not opposed to it. Wide receiver is Texas' top need. I'm taking the top wide receiver here, Keon Coleman. I think that is a perfect fit. So, we got the Saints. And the Saints, I think, are taking a defensive tackle. It's just Jer'Zhan Newton, who I have as the number 1 tackle on my board. Defensive tackle on my board. I think there's some argument for offensive tackle. It's J.C. Latham, who I generally think is the next highest guy. But I also don't think he's necessarily worth 18, which is kind of the weird spot. With Atlanta, I think I kind of want to take quarterback, but I think you have to go edge. And to me, this is where I would look at either you're looking Dallas Turner or Braylon Trice. Turner, for whatever reason, is this box simulator's number 5 player, which is completely wild to me. But I think he's the next highest edge player on the available. Colts. They want edge. They're kind of annoyed that Dallas Turner just went. I think they take Braylon Trice. He's obviously the next highest player. Next highest player on the board. I don't think you think too much. To me, the next highest corner on the board is Nate Wiggins. And I think he's probably the perfect fit for what the Bills need. Dallas. J.C. Latham is an easy pick. I'm not going to complain about the pick. I think it is probably the perfect pick for them to make. Now we have the Ravens. And the Ravens are kind of in an interesting spot. To me, the next highest player on my board, especially for them, this is corner, but to me, like none of these corners are particularly appealing in the first round. Safety, and I think Kitchens is higher than Mukova, but to me, I don't think either of them necessarily go in the first round. So I think you go offensive tackle. To me, the next highest offensive line player is Graham Barton, and I think that would probably be the Ravens' next pick. Seahawks. Seahawks here will take Michael Penix. I think Michael Penix gives you a clear succession plan. You only have one more year for why am I blanking so hard right now? But your current quarterback only has one more year left on his deal after this year, or 2 more years. Go ahead, get Michael Penix in, let him learn, and be the succession plan. Steelers. Steelers to me are kind of interesting. To me, I think the next player on the board that I could see for them would be Jeremiah Trotter. And honestly, I think that's the direction I'm going to go. I think I'm going to have the Steelers take Jeremiah Trotter. I think it's kind of a weird pick, but I also think the Steelers needing a linebacker makes a lot of sense. And now we're to my Jacksonville Jaguars. We're definitely looking edge. And quite frankly, I'm not seeing any edge players that I love. I'm looking corner. To me, the next highest corner is probably Kalen Carson. And I'm not a huge fan of that. Defensive tackle would probably be Mason Smith, and that's where I'm going. I think it's quite easily one of the weaker positions in Jacksonville. I think honestly, if you're sticking in the 3-4, he plays a defensive end spot, but really, really good player. I think he fits what you want. So, Here's the thing. I think the Bucks re-sign the number one, re-sign their quarterback, Baker Mayfield, but I also think you take Jaden McCarthy here as your long-term solution. To me, this is actually where I might go safety. Cameron Kitchens is that player. Is the player. Kingsley Solomonsala. Kingsley, whatever, however the hell you pronounce that, offensive tackle for BYU. That fills a need. Ooh, I keep forgetting about Amarius Mims. Apparently, wide receiver is a need, and I have not looked at wide receiver in a minute. And to me, the next highest wide receiver is Xavier Worthy. There is a wide receiver out. To me, the next highest wide receiver on my board is Adonai Mitchell. That is just easily where my pick is. And then we have the San Francisco 49ers. Niners could go best player available, which to me with their board, I'm probably looking Denzel Burke. But I also think Amarius Mims is just the best player available. And to me, it is what it is.